So, are you a speciesist? Are you
Big time.
pro-humanity, Reid?
Yeah. So maybe let me give your audience a little bit of context about where that term even came from. So yeah, there's this thing called speciesism that someone might get leveled, a charge that somebody might get leveled with, and it comes from animal rights literature. So there's a famous piece by Peter Singer. He's a famous philosopher out of Princeton who back in the 70s wrote a piece called, or a book called Animal Liberation. And the idea was something like, hey, listen, we've got to take the interests of non-human animals to be of equal weight as the interests, roughly desires, needs, etc., of human beings, and to claim that human interests are more important than the interests of non-human animals is to engage or manifest a kind of speciesism, which is, of course, analogous to racism or sexism. So it's just supposed to be just as or similarly morally objectionable. And so now what, Larry Page's response to Elon Musk, as you pointed out, was, hey, man, you're being speciesist. It's to say, why should we take the interests of human beings to be as more important as the interests of AI? That's how the analogy would go, which frankly strikes me as rather bizarre on a number of fronts.
Not just bizarre, Reid, suicidal. And I'm not, that's not
Yeah.
to, that's, well, but that's not to
Yeah.
leap to, and you and I've had these conversations and we'll continue to have these conversations. How big of an existential threat to humanity is AI? But that's not to leap to that conclusion that the answer is it will destroy humanity. But as a
Sure.
priority, yeah, if you don't make the continued existence of humanity the top of your pyramid, then you are embracing a future which is by its very nature, at least when it comes to the potential of AI, suicidal.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's broadly right. There's also sort of, very obvious things to say, maybe not obvious, but things to say in response to that specious charge. So, look, in the case of animals, you might say things like this. Well, maybe I am a species, but that's for good reason, because there are morally relevant differences between humans and animals. For instance, we engage in reflective deliberation. We have these long-term commitments to other people, to the projects that we pursue, to justice, whatever it is. And by virtue of being rational creatures who take on this sort of much more complex, fuller lives, yeah, our flourishing matters more than, say, the flourishing of chickens, right? That's not the case with, say, someone's being black. You might think, yeah, there's no morally relevant difference to someone's being black or a woman such that their interests count less. Now, with humans and AI, I want to say the same kind of thing as I'd say about the chicken. We are morally different. We are morally superior to AI. AI doesn't have moral worth. It doesn't have a dignity the way that
Right.
human beings do, because it doesn't have the kinds of capacities and lives and the capacity for human flourishing or just flourishing that we do. So, yeah, call me a speciesist, but I've got reason for it.
One of the things that people say about humanity that distinguishes us from much of the animal kingdom, and certainly from plants, is consciousness.
Yep.
That's what gives us our worth. Can AI can AI achieve consciousness?
Okay, so when we say consciousness, I take it you mean something like there's something that's like to be us. We experience the world, we feel pain and pleasure and love and disgust and all that stuff. That's sort of part of what gives us our moral worths. That sounds right. So there we're talking broadly. You might say consciousness. You might also say sentience. You might use those interchangeably. Um, AI doesn't have sentience, doesn't have consciousness. And so you might think, look, if that's a necessary condition for being of moral worth, then it just lacks it. Could in principle, nothing, I got to stress this, nothing like the AI that we have today has consciousness or sentience. It's not even in the realm of where we are. People argue that there's a kind of intelligence that AI has. And you could either say, no, it doesn't have intelligence because it doesn't have consciousness, and you can't have intelligence without consciousness. Or you can say, I'll grant you fine, it has intelligence, but it's a kind of intelligence that's divorced from consciousness. Either way, the answer for now, the short term, and frankly the foreseeable future is that AI doesn't have consciousness.
Okay, this is somewhat related to AI. I mean, artificial intelligence is what helps create these things. But I saw a video yesterday. I'm drawing my line in the sand, Reid. It's the Alamo. Chuck Schumer will not take my Zen nicotine. I saw the memes are incredible. I saw a meme and it had Donald Trump, we will have beautiful flavors of Zen. We'll not allow them to take your Zen. Just a
Pretty good.
perfect impersonation of him championing Zen. That's a fun, deep fake. There are others out there. Like, I haven't seen these. Some of my producers were telling me Taylor Swift, pretty risque. I don't know, maybe even pornographic of Taylor Swift and Kansas City Chiefs gear. But let's take it even more malignant. Like I've heard, like in high school, that's beginning to happen where, right now, you talk to your kids like, don't take pictures. That can go anywhere. But now people can create pictures of you, not just celebrities, of you in compromised positions or you in embarrassing situation, whatever it may be, pornographic. What do we do here? This is AI. This is part of AI.
Yeah. It's an obvious application of AI, the generative AI in particular, right? So like you said, you get false images, we're going to have false video. We already sort of have that, but we're going to get more advanced generative video. You're right. There's both a sort of private and a public threat, or threats to public and private life. Private life, you've got bullying, right? You already have cyberbullying on social media, right? So, kids on social media bullying other kids, and you have adults bullying other adults for that matter. So this is a sort of method of massively ratcheting it up the kind of threat. And as you said, in the public sphere, we've got for instance, and most obviously, threats to elections. Right, there have been fake images of Donald Trump getting elected, fake images of Donald Trump getting arrested. Recently in New Hampshire, there was a fake Biden voice calling people in New Hampshire saying don't come to vote. I think this is a bipartisan issue. I don't think anyone should want this in the public space or in the private space. I can't see a way around it without a law forbidding such kinds of things. There was a law there was a bill introduced by, I forgot their names, but a Democratic and a Republican senator, I believe, to making this a federal crime to create generative AI and spread misinformation. But who knows whether it's going to pass.
Oh, man.
But without a law, and that's heavily enforced, we're in big trouble.
Yeah, I just don't know how you, honestly, I do not know how you legislate that. The words that just came out of your mouth, generative AI that creates disinformation. I mean, you can't separate that from fiction at this point, meaning creative intellectual property, shows, art. I don't know how you separate any of that. Is Van Gogh disinformation because it's a distortion of reality? I don't know where this will go with you. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I suppose I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a bill writer, nor do I want to be. But you could see perhaps certain kinds of narrow laws being placed. For instance, no creating false generative images of candidates that are running for political office. I don't think that's obviously implausible. That would obviously not affect, say, Hollywood or other kind of
totally unenforceable. You write it down, it's on paper, and then it's unenforceable. And by the way, if you made it enforceable, Reid, I'm terrified of the agency that enforces that law.
Well, I'm not that terrified. I mean, there's got to be more controls around it, right? So we don't want, neither side, I think, wants either side running amok. I don't think that's good for democracy, and so I don't think it's good for any political party that intends to operate within a democracy. The other problem, though, is that there's really three kinds of threats. There's opposing political parties. They can do it. Then you've got foreign state actors, right? So think, China or Russia or some such, North Korea generating false images. And then you've got another threat of just, if you like, lone actors acting without the consent or without the authority or permission or direction of any political entity. So you've got at least three sources of a threat. And to your point, I do not see how we get a handle on that.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you something, Reid. So, the least of my concerns when it comes to AI is the survival of democracy. I think that is, well, I mean, honestly, man, I think you're like saying to the patient, I'm really concerned about the lesions and not the underlying HIV that causes the lesions. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, what you're talking about with AI is a distortion of reality. And the effects on democracy are only one lesion on a patient who is suffering from a distorted reality. I'm more concerned when it comes to AI of everyone. And I had this conversation with a friend this morning, actually. It's like, I've always been opposed to this idea that perception is reality. It's almost like quasi-religious to kind of indulge in this self-help world of, positive thinking can lead to a positive reality, negative thinking can lead to a negative reality. But I'm changing, Reid. I'm changing. I saw Tony Robbins do this awesome thing with Theo Vaughn, where he was like, hey, I want you to look around the room and remember everything that's red. Now close your eyes. And of course you think you're going to tell Tony Robbins all the things in the room that are red. He goes, now tell me everything that's brown. And you can't, because your focus wasn't on brown. Your focus was on red. And if your focus is on negativity, you'll manifest negativity. If your focus is on positivity, it can become your reality. So you could argue we always have different realities. But what I'm worried about with AI, democracy is just part of it. I'm worried about all of us living in individual realities.
Yeah, the lack of a shared reality is a big concern, and it's only, frankly, it's only going to get worse. I think I'm a little bit worried about augmented reality. In addition to AI, right? So we have Apple coming out with its whatever they call the Vision Pro or whatever ridiculous, frankly, from my perspective, ridiculous helmet that people are supposed to wear. Just imagine that not only is it a different informational reality, if you like, but it's literally you're looking at different stuff, right? You're on the subway, or you're on the train, or you're at a park with people. Everyone's got their, picture it 10 years, 20 years from now, where it's not a helmety thing, but it's more of like embedded in your glasses or your contact lenses, where people are literally looking at different things. So I think that, the potential for something like a fractured reality is sufficient. It's sufficiently high such that we should be worried about it. Absolutely. And yeah, democracy is one thing. Now, I'll say one last thing though. I do think it's important to identify the particular lesions, as you put it. And that's because I don't think that there's a silver bullet that's going to just sort of solve all the problems. I think it's going to have to be, let's dice up the problems. Let's dice up, because the solutions are going to have to be targeted for those particular problems. So I agree with you that there's, if you like, an underlying thing causing all the lesions. It's not obvious to me that the only option is to treat the thing that's causing all the
lesions. Put fingers in the dam. It
might be a whack-a-mole
plugging
situation.
the dam in different ways.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, that actually is a great place to take this. This is where I wanted to end with you. Like, so when I was thinking about Elon Musk in his position to this, I don't want to ever, buy my ideologies from a Cracker Jack box or indulge in hero worship, but I do think he's kind of getting this right, at least on the surface, where he's like, or he did in the past say that the only answer is a democratization of AI. Like, you need to have a robust competition of a bunch of small AIs. If AI is a reflection of the moral values of its programmer and then what it builds on top of that, I think the biggest threat is one monopolistic AI resting on one small group of people's moral vision of artificial intelligence. It seems like, and I don't even know what that means in reality, Reid, but like a bunch of AIs. We need a bunch of AIs competing, and that may exacerbate the fractured reality, like everyone living in their own reality.
Right.
But I have to think like free market, if you have to invoke antitrust laws, just as many different AI developers with their own view of the world as possible.
Yeah, I think that's got to be broadly right. One slight technicality is that it's I don't think like a Sam Altman has his finger on the scales for the content of what, say, GPT pushes out. It reflects the data, at least in no small part, the data that they collect. And so it's not necessarily the sort of evil or bad intentions of the developers. It's just sort of haphazardly collected data, not vetted for safety of any sort, just thrown into the machine, as it were, and let's see what pops out. And there's more to it than that, of course, although they've also been every platform has been destroying their trust and safety teams, so that's a little bit worrying. But yeah, having sort of feel like competing AIs seems like the right thing. I don't think we want a completely centralized single AI, but I also don't think that we're headed in that direction. We're probably headed more in the direction of a handful of very powerful AIs that are created by the most powerful tech companies. Mark Zuckerberg of Meta recently, threw their hat into the ring, saying we're putting a lot of resources into this. So,
Oh, good.
you're going to see Meta and Google and Microsoft and OpenAI and Anthropic and a handful of other well-funded companies and those that haven't even been founded yet competing in the marketplace. And no, there won't be a single winner, I don't think. The question is going to be, do we have enough? Do we have enough competition? And I don't think that we know the answer to that yet.
We'll keep looking for answers. We'll keep looking for it with you, Reid Blackman, the CEO of Virtue, an AI ethical risk consultancy. And he wrote the book. Check it out, Ethical Machines. Always good to talk to you, Reid. Thank you.
Yeah, you as well. You as well will.
All right. Take care.